Good morning, Marcus. I know it's morning. How are you?
Hey, this is Marcus.
Hi, Marcus. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay. Hi, Wenyi. Thank you for joining. I don't know if you have met each other, at least introduced. So
Nope.
Wenyi is a PhD candidate at University of Notre Dame. He is interning with us this summer.
Cool.
Wenyi, you want to say something about yourself?
Yeah, hi Marcus. I can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, wasn't sure about audio setting.
Yeah, are we expecting Mick? I don't know if you're expecting Mick. Let me do this. Let me share my screen. Okay, do you see my screen?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. So, attendees are Marcus as the attendee, not. So yeah, just basic things. This is the open source community meeting for private data objects project. Meeting is being recorded. It is an open to all, no confidential information, and everybody equal to contribute forum. Just keep that in mind, right? It is not owned by Intel. Okay. Oh, Mick is right here. So let me add him. Maybe Bruno is not here. Sorry, I think I'm changing the wrong. Yep. I make morning. I think you can hear us.
All right, I think that's better. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Hi, Mick.
Hey, Marcus.
You have a very fancy background. How did you get
Yeah,
that?
this is the leftover from the PDAS workshop with National Science Foundation last week. By the way, Marcus, if you know of anybody who wants to apply for funding to that NSF grant we talked about, or if IBM wants to kick in money to sponsor it, now's the time. We have until October 27 to add additional sponsors. All right. So
Is this what we were talking about in the Christmas time frame last year?
yes, exactly.
Oh, nice. Do you have a
The
link?
National Science Foundation has opened the solicitation, and there's been a couple of information. I will forward the link onto you. But at this point, what we're really looking for, I mean, like I said, IBM could contribute, or any other organization can continue to sponsor. But what we're really looking for is just forward it on to anybody you think would be interested in being funded by it. So I'll send that information to you in just a bit.
Yes, please. Thanks.
But you do notice that I guess they even, gave me the little Intel badge when I got a very custom built background for it. So.
Oh.
Okay, time to go back to my regular one.
Okay, it
Yeah,
was
now
good.
you're home.
Yeah.
Now I'm home. Feeling much better.
So one quick question. Is there any way we should or we should not connect the proposal to the private data objects project in general?
What do you mean?
I mean, do you see
The National
the
Science Foundation work, we cannot, anyone who's sponsoring cannot participate in the
proposal?
proposal at all. Like we can't
Yes,
give feedback on the proposal.
that's true. But this is for something like putting a link for the call to proposal on the video website or something.
Oh, I think it would be fine. I think it would be a great idea. So,
Okay.
yeah, if you want to just put together a small PR for the README,
Yeah.
or even, I mean, even just you can even post it on the Discord channel. Although,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't beat Discord. Sorry, Marcus. Okay, what was I looking for?
Okay, so that's good. I think so. On the agenda, I mean, I have a small one. So, so there is an outstanding PR on the private data object contracts repo about a new use case, essentially an extension of the inference contract use case that is already there to the situation where the asset is again an ML model and we want to do inferencing via like Hugging Face endpoints. So I think it deserves a little bit more explanation for Marcus if you haven't seen the inference contract use case.
No.
Yeah, so
I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, so basically this is in the PDO contracts repo. So this is where, as you might know, we collect examples of how to use PDO.
Right.
Right. And so we originally had, of course, we originally had the exchange contract that was the first canonical non-trivial use case that we added here, which really allowed generating or minting tokens for policy-based usage of assets that are guarded by an appropriate guardian, right? The guardian guards the assets and exposes capabilities. Use the asset but does not check policy. Policy gets checked as part of a PDO contract that generates encrypted capabilities that are processed by the guardian to use the asset and return the result to the user. So yeah, we call it NFTs, T anchored NFTs. That sounds appropriate. I think we have discussed this notion in the past in these calls. Have we with you?
I think I discussed this, I mean, like last year with Mick at some point.
Okay. Yeah. So the basic algorithms for establishing like attestation between the PDO token object smart contract and the guardian and the token guardian protocol. We have a token guardian protocol that Mick had authored some time back, and that's all implemented in this exchange contract folder. And what you see here, like otherwise, like the digital asset contract and the inference contract are specific instances of that generic protocol for specific use cases. For example, the digital asset contract is one where the asset is a confidential image, like otherwise, and not, yeah, it's a partially confidential image where if you are not the token owner, you cannot download the original image, but you can only download a black and white version of the image. And if you are the token owner, you can download the entire image as is, which might be color coded, right? Which might have a color pattern, which might have a like RGB pattern to it, right? I mean, yeah. So, and in this use case, the asset was guarded by another PDO contract itself. There was no separate guardian service, right? That was the use case here. And in the inference contract, the asset was a machine learning model, and the operation and if you are the token owner, you get the ability to invoke inferencing operations against the asset, but you cannot, of course, download the asset or do anything with it. And in this use case, we used the OpenVINO based inferencing. So we built a Guardian service that used as part of the Guardian service an OpenVINO model server based inferencing service, right? And that was this example. And we really wanted to build a demo out of it. We went some way with that, partially with that, but we never externalized that demo because of feedback that OpenVINO probably does not have a roadmap to actually hosting an inferencing service, right? As far as we could tell based on conversations with others, like OpenVINO is mostly used as a library that anybody could download to locally deploy a machine learning model for inferencing, but not for a hosting service. So we felt that going too far with that contract might not get sufficient traction for that use case. So what we did then was that we took the same pattern, the same use case, but just simply replaced the OpenVINO backend with Hugging Face endpoints. And that is essentially, and the implementation of that is in this PR. So what we are essentially doing here is, there is a documentation here. Yeah, so what this PR allows you is, so suppose if you have a possibly confidential model that you have shared in Hugging Face, you have like uploaded in Hugging Face, which you have not made public, but you want to give to a third party like access to use the model subject to some policy restrictions. Policy could be, okay, I will give you access to at most 10 like inferencing requests, not more than that. Or it could be like, okay, I want you to use a certain specific input filter to make sure that your input is not malicious. Or I want you to post-process the output in a certain way before you can see the result, simply because this model otherwise is going to emit too much information, right? So like all of these are examples of policy. Now what this PR gives you is the basic infrastructure that allows you to do any of that with your model that you have hosted in Hugging Face and made available for inferencing via what Hugging Face calls as the serverless API inferencing endpoints, right? So the basic assumption is that you have an ML model, you know how to upload it as a private confidential model in Hugging Face, and you have enabled inferencing for it via the serverless API technique that they tell you how to do, right? Once you do all of that, then you come here and you deploy a PDO token object smart contract and specify the policy in the smart contract. Of course, as of now, it's a very generic smart contract. What is in this PR? There is no model specific policy that is there in the smart contract, although you can go and change it to whatever you want. As of now, in this generic smart contract, what is possible is to encode the schema of the input that the user has to pass, any fixed model parameters, like if you're using an LLM like GPT-2, which is what we use for the test cases. The model owner, let's say that you own GPT-2, right? You own GPT-2, you can specify the parameters that must be used every time somebody else makes an like invocation against that GPT-2 model, like the temperature or whether cache should be used and things like that, right? And you can also specify like a max use count, referring to how many times in like queries can be made against that model by the owner of the token, right? And that is it. So that's all that you need to know at a high level, right? And otherwise, of course, if you are the token owner, you have to first deploy the token object, and as long as you don't need to change the policy, you just have to, you can use the default policy by just specifying these parameters that are like already embedded, and then you just have to transfer the ownership of the token to like anybody else who might want to use this, and they get to use your Hugging Face model, where their requests get routed via the video infrastructure, right? I wanted to show you a demo. The demo is not yet ready. Yeah, like hopefully soon, and I will like open source it like as soon as it is ready. Yeah.
So what's then missing? What is if the demo's not ready, what's missing from this PR, and should we just wait until it's completed?
There isn't nothing missing from this PR. So this PR, so I worked with Any yesterday, and he could reproduce the test on his end.
Okay, by the way, I'm going to tell you this right now.
Yeah.
That you need to go back and format these lines to 80 characters or 100 characters in the MD files.
Sure. Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. So yeah, we could reproduce the same thing on many machines. So I know for a fact that with this thing works. Yeah. So if you can give me like any basic comments that you might have on the PR, that would be helpful.
So what does it mean that the demo doesn't work, but we should accept the PR?
The test works, not the demo. The demo in the sense that it is not integrated into either the notebook or an otherwise a UI that I'm trying to build.
Okay, so what's missing is the integration to some kind of interface.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
There is a test. And in that test, you should be able to change the test with some other model. For example, if you go to this specific no, not that. If you go to yeah, here, this one. If you go to yeah, so if you go to here, if you go to detail parameters, there are they give a lot of examples of models and parameters that you could use to make invocations via the serverless API like endpoints, right? And you should be able to use the test with. I did not, of course, try with all of this, but I tried it with a few of these.
Okay.
But of course, the assumption is that these are all as of now like open source models. But in a real setting, for example, the assumption is that this model is not exposed as an not exported as an open source public model, and you have kept it confidential, and it can be accessed only if the auth token or the API token of the owner of the model is passed in as part of the request.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. I'll just leave it at that. I don't know if you got a chance to look any further at this yesterday.
Just at the very, very high level. So. Okay.
Did you have any more comments after yesterday?
I only tried to test the. I'm not sure I have like enough knowledge base for this project to give a very constructive suggestions right now.
That makes you a very good person to take a look at it. If you can understand it, then that's good feedback.
Yes. What would be very valuable to hear from you is whether you could use, let's say, this PR or this PR essentially follows the template of the inference contract PR.
Yeah.
So let's say that you want to write another contract. So if you could use this PR as a template to write another contract, right? To think of it that way, yes, this use case is one, and the value of this use case and whether this use case makes sense is separate is an important question. But in addition to that, if you could give comment about the template of this PR in general, about its utility for you to help author another contract, that would be very helpful.
Okay, I'll try to do that.
Bruno is here. Bruno. Hi, Bruno.
Hi, I'm here.
Bruno, are you saying something? Because we can't hear you.
You're very feeble. Okay, I think I'll get back to you, Marcus. Do you have comments, questions, or what would you like to see from this PR?
Well, I mean, I just looked, like 30 seconds in this PR. Just jumping into the cold water, having no clue what's going on really here. When I look at this repository, well, I understand this is a repository where we basically have a bunch of different samples or use case implementations, how to use PDO. And so in particular, this PR creates 3 new contracts, which, belong together to one particular use case, right? But this is not really respected in the code structure. So, what I was thinking, so would it make sense to, put each contract in a subfolder, which goes to, I don't know, to use case or to demo, or I don't know, maybe there's one contract which is a standalone contract called this.
There is only one contract here. It only makes one contract. This PR only introduces one. Yeah, sorry.
So if you look at the repository structure, Marcus, and this is something we should probably document more, right? I'm listening to your reactions, thinking of all the things I have to do. That's number one. If you look at this, each one of these should have the Dash contract is a contract family. And basically is a collection of contract objects that work together to provide some application. That's the intention behind the structure that's here. So in theory, what Prakash's work should have done is add I'm not sure the Hugging Face because of the, have you gone through and verified that you have all the trademark requirements met, for example, Prakash? Because you're using a trademark to name for it. So
yeah, there is
have you
nothing.
checked on appropriate use for and confirmed the trademark?
Yeah, because we are not including any of their code or anything except their name.
No, but you're making a reference to the name. So just make sure that, for example, if it's a registered trademark, then you need to be able to mark it as a registered trademark for that. Okay. That being that was one thing I was gonna bring up on this, right? That you're making a lot of references to somebody else's company. Make sure that you dotted the I's and crossed the T's on all the legal issues that have to be addressed with giving appropriate recognition to them for it. Now, Marcus, coming back to kind of your observation, just as a high level question, does the structure that we have for the repository make sense to you? For having these sort of contract families be a subdirectory in there?
To be honest, not so much. Because my observation here is, we have a bunch of things like bin, CMake, Docker, docs, which is okay. There I have an idea what's inside. And then, without really, looking a lot into what's inside those contract folders. So now I need to think about what is this, or I have to read about it. I have to go into it. I don't know, my first assumption would be, okay, we have then on the root level of the repository, we have, I don't know, one folder called samples or sample contracts or demo contracts, whatever. And inside there, you have a bunch of actual things. That would be a more logical structure.
You mean something like apps and inside that?
Well, or call it contract families, whatever. The README is going to have to be able to do that. So I'm just going to open a.
Well, honestly, I would go for something which most people immediately see when they're looking for sample. I like samples here. Contracts could be also again something technical you need in this repository.
So I understand that, but this entire thing is the samples. It's not like each one of those is a sample. So, so I guess I would push. I guess my pushback would be what we need to do is a better job at adding into the README. So the README right now is just basically the Hyperledger piece of it. We need to make a reference to something else that provides the initial description of what we have.
But the README speaks about Exchange, right?
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying is that we need to update the README to be more generic for the contract families. So,
but it's a lot more than a contract family, right? Because even in your digital asset or inference, it's an application built on top of a contract family.
Yeah. Well, the idea of a contract family is that it is an application. That is our phrase for application.
Okay.
Well, so which of the contracts would you consider to be the easiest? Similar to a Hello World?
There is no Hello World, but that is on our list of things to add. The Exchange contract is the oldest and most mature. The Hello World would actually be a very useful thing to have. The Hello World is actually over in the PDO repository, but right. So
the applications here, you would not consider them as samples for how to use PDO, how to write PDO contracts? You would say it's more than that?
The contract families that we have here are legitimate applications that you could use for a variety of purposes. They are also samples for how to make it work.
I see.
Okay, I'm going to push an issue. Marcus, I have you on it. So feel free to make whatever, and by the way, you do not have to agree with me on the structure of things. So I'm looking for input and feedback. I may choose to, do with it what I will with it. But I think you as a new user coming in and your reactions are very important in order to drive clarity on it.
Very good. But again, I mean, when I look at this PR creates 3 more contract folders. No, 1. It changes at 1 to the inference.
It's just adds 1. Yeah. It adds 1 contract family subdirectory.
I see. Well, I mean, you have to understand the mental picture I have in my head, right? So if I want to look at smart contracts for Fabric, I go to the Fabric samples repository, and then there are a bunch of different use cases. And then if you like asset transfer use case, then you go into that folder, and then you find samples for the application, which uses the Fabric Client SDK. Then you have sample for the actual chain code implementation in different languages. There's something else. I don't know.
How do you, I mean, you're structuring, so your asset transfer is comparable to what you're calling asset transfer would be comparable to what we have as a contract family here. So the exchange contract might correspond to asset transfer.
Okay.
So because, yeah, if you look at the exchange contract folder itself, right? The contracts are there in exchange, the client pieces, which is essentially the application logic, is there here, right?
So,
yeah.
Okay, so Prakash, number one thing that I'm hearing from Marcus is similar to what Wenyi was saying earlier, which is our structure is complex. We need something which is the beginner's introduction into the structure. A very, very simple hello world that walks through all of the different pieces that you have to have for creating a new contract family, for how to interact with the contract family would be extremely helpful for making this more approachable. Marcus, am I capturing? And when you feel free to jump in on this.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well phrased.
So I'm going to say,
because the other advantage of the
Hello
World is we talked
contract
about having
development.
Yeah, hang on a second. So the Hello World also gives us, and this was when Yi and I were having this conversation, having a template that you could simply say, copy Hello World into a new subdirectory and then start modifying it. And that's how you get your next version of your contract family. Prakash, my issue with this PR, just at a high level, is should this not be part of a dev branch until it matures a little bit more? Kind of like what we're doing with the identities.
We can definitely do that. I mean, I can move it to a dev branch. I mean, yeah, I mean, there is, yeah, we can do that. That
and the fact that we're saying things like we need the, we
fair.
need the application and the other pieces of it. That's part of the reason why I'm doing the work on the identity in a separate dev branch.
No, this PR by itself is in the same. So if you compare it with the inference contract and compare it with what the inference contract is trying to do from that perspective, it is complete. There isn't anything yet. There's
Right,
anything
but
to do.
I would still say even the inference contract, the tests that are written, there's no negative tests. There's no, what does it do to break it? It's still less mature in its environment than the exchange or digital asset that have been around for a long time and have both positive and negative tests, for example, and a variety of other things that are designed to push the limits and see if it actually works.
That is true. We definitely need more testing and more documentation if that's what you mean.
And that's basically what I'm saying is, things that end up here should be fairly mature and stable. And if we're continuing to develop on it, then maybe the process of using the dev branch we talked about last time is a better way to do that, to get things to mature.
Okay, so suggestion is to move the HF contracts PR to a dev branch. Until there is more test documentation,
stability,
demo, or like interface.
Yeah, and I think,
right.
I mean, even things like making sure that we've got the trademark.
Yeah.
I can't merge it until I'm comfortable with
Yeah.
legal issues as well.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. That is fair. Yeah, we can.
And the dev branch, we're not committed to things in the dev branch. That this is in progress. It may be in a bad state periodically, and that's okay. So.
Okay. So that also implies that I could push any partial demo to the dev branch, right?
Correct.
I can do that.
Exactly.
Okay, that is helpful. I don't have to keep it locally then. Yeah.
And then we can still do the PRs on those branches and provide feedback for you as we're going through it. But
okay.
Have the dev branch have this as a PR against the dev branch. We still give you the feedback for it, like it needs to be formatted in 100 character columns.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So yes, move. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. So it's from my personal experience. So when I tried to figure out how to run the test for Prakash's PR, I was trying to figure that out from the make files inside of the Docker path. So I would say it's a little bit confusing to have like multiple ways to test. I see we have like a Bear built locally and the Docker based test, and also the Jupyter and Docker based test. When I was trying to do this, I was kind of confusing about which one should I use. And because there's basically Jupyter folders under each samples, so that made me even more confused.
Yeah, and I get that, and you're just going to have to deal with it to a certain degree because you don't have to install all of the contract families inside the Docker image. It could be done. There is pretty reasonable documentation about how to do the test, right? So if you look in the PDO contracts docs install.md, it tells you how to run tests.
Yes, but
so I think so. One thing that is missing, Mick, is if you want to run a test locally on bare metal, yes, it is obvious that you should have your own deployment of PDF first, but that I don't think is well documented inside the contracts folder. So as part of the install, we should probably add that, make sure that you have your own deployment of PDO services and PDO ledger to start with, and then follow these instructions to build the contracts on a bare metal, and you can test each contract like individually if you're only working on that by going to that test folder of that contract. And
no, you shouldn't. Yeah, but you shouldn't go to the test folder on that contract because you can do it up above. And there is, again, documentation in the Makefile, but it's not in the docs about how to do single contract families.
Yeah, I mean, it's because I guess Lenny's point was he was trying to get to a point where he wants to know how to develop a new contract. So he wanted to get an environment where he could just only interact with a single contract, both from like authoring it and testing it, right? So
but even your stuff won't work that way because you have dependencies on the other contract families.
I only need Exchange.
But that doesn't matter. If you have one, then you have to build the
yes.
the rest.
So my
So
PR will build everything. My PR will build everything.
that's not what I'm saying.
No. What I'm saying is
The
like
PR
after you build the whole
Stop.
repo.
Wait. The question that you're asking is, how do we do testing? A better way of doing testing is to go in and start with the top level and simply subset the folders in there. Right? There are, do you need a PDO installed for bare metal testing? Yes, but if you're doing bare metal testing, you better know that already. Right? That's the simple thing. If you're doing the Docker testing, it should be a lot cleaner than that already. I guess my point is read the docs and then come back to me on it. If you have to go to a Makefile in order to do configuration, okay, then we have to fix the docs in order to do it. If we don't have the right references to the right docs to get you started on things, okay, then we have to fix the README in order to get you there. But if you haven't read the docs on it, then there's nothing I can do to help you. It is a complex piece of code, and that's all there is to it. So I can make it as easy as possible, which is what we've done with Docker for it. We can have a developer guide, and I think the whole point of having the Hello World is we should put all of that information in the Hello World about how you do the different pieces of it.
Yeah,
but I am not going to go through and copy every single copy the same text in every single contract family to duplicate it, because it's impossible to keep the maintenance up on it. The best thing we can do at this point is, number one, make sure that we've got all of the existing documentation correct. So anytime you have to go to a Makefile to figure something out, and assuming you've read the documentation, if you have to go to the Makefile to figure it out, then create an issue telling me that I have to update some documentation for the information you had to go into the Makefile for. Right? That's number one. Okay. I think number two on the simplicity thing is we have to have that Hello World contract that Marcus was talking about. Something that gives you, here's where you go first in order to understand the layout of a contract family and how to interact with that contract family. And oh, by the way, if you want to build one, just copy this whole directory someplace else and start editing it. Right? That is a huge gap in what we have right now. And I think when we've had that conversation, that we absolutely have to have that. Life will be so much easier with that. So I completely agree with those two. I do not agree with every single contract family having a whole bunch of additional mechanisms so that we can do bare metal testing and Docker testing and per directory testing and per family testing and a whole bunch of other things on it. That's not going to get duplicated. We can put all of that information into the Hello World, and then you have to read the documents in order to do it. It's not a straightforward. I mean, the project right now is it's a complex thing to do that. Using it better be easy. Right? That is, if somebody else has built a contract, it better be easy. And right now, I think we're at that stage with the Docker that it is pretty easy to be able to do that. So building a contract is a complex thing. And we better make it easier, but it's never going to be a 5-minute job of just browsing through the file system for it. And Marcus, for anyone who ever comes into Fabric and thinks that they've got a 5-minute access to implementing a chain code, they're nuts. So
I totally agree. But yeah, I mean, this is, I mean, I'm just telling my viewpoint from what I'm used to, it,
yeah,
right? And it kind of works. I mean, from what I observe on Discord, when people, I mean, asking, hey, where do I start? And then you basically say, okay, go to the Fabric samples. And then if you combine this plus a little bit of documentation, well, you find a way to start.
Yeah.
So it seems to work somehow. I'm not saying that's easy and the best way. Absolutely, most probably not. I mean, just starting a Fabric network, insane.
Well,
But yeah,
I mean, we are to the point with the Docker that you can, if you want as a user, you can simply say go and you get an interface you can use in the Docker directory. So
yeah, I think, I mean, also from my experience, I mean, having this Dockerized dev playground, let's call it playground, I think that's the best thing to do. I mean, honestly, so when do you start running this on bare metal? I mean, if you really want to dig into it, right? I don't know if you want to do benchmarks or whatever. For most cases, I mean, just to play with it, Dockerized playground is absolutely fine. So that should be, from my experience, the default way
yeah,
to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. Yeah, because there are two types of users as far as I see for any project. Right? One is somebody who just wants to see how things work. For them, Docker is all that we should be exposing, and another one is who wants to actually write a hello world and see. And just like Mick says, if we have that hello world contract development guide, I think then I think our focus largely, if I can summarize this way, has been on trying to expose the utility of the PDO project as a whole. So the older pattern and development pattern like evolved in that way. But I think now I think we need to focus on the other two as
all right. So there's a new issue out there. I mean, for the moment at least, just use that as kind of a bin list, and let's just add to it all the things that we think we need for simplifying the getting started parts of it. So when you feel free to add whatever comments you have in there about your expectations. Marcus, if you are comfortable, feel free to put something in there. I had a Hello World folder contract at one point in time, and I think it got lost in a whole bunch of my screwing around with at different times. So it shouldn't be too hard to go back and reconstruct them for the basics. Although the documentation sucks. All right. Prakash, can I just start with something else for a minute?
yes.
So I have started a repo. I have a repo with a fork of the Hyperledger HIP repository. And I'm putting together the incubation proposal in there. So I think I pointed you to a branch that hasn't been merged back in my repo. But please start taking a look through the content that's there, and let's actually work on completing this as much as possible.
Okay.
So again, feel free to add content and send it to me.
Okay.
Whatever is the best way to do it.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. Do we have a link for that you want to share?
It's in the chat. Yeah, it's in the chat.
I see. Okay.
So if you want to just copy it over for now.
Yeah.
Marcus, on that, one of the things that I had a kind of a question on. So one of the things is there is a list of dependent projects. I was planning on including FPC as a dependent project. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can totally say, hey, FPC uses the PDO crypto library portion.
Yeah, I think that was
And,
kind of where I was going to go with it. Is that although they're slightly different, there are different approaches. There's commonality between the two. So
yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, I think this is also nice for a proposal that we can demonstrate that this work is consumed by other projects within Hyperledger. This is pretty good, I would say.
yeah. Okay. I will make sure that that part is in there. I wasn't, since FPC is not a full-fledged Hyperledger project on its own, I wasn't sure if I needed to add that reference in there, but I talk about FPC being derived from PDO, plus the FPC being the merger of some of the PDO work and the IBM research work on it. So
yeah. Well, I mean, FPC is part of Fabric.
yeah,
Since
that's why I was
the
saying it's not a
RFC,
separate,
right.
it's not a separate project on its own, but there's
Right.
a relationship between the two of them. So
Well, technically, we are in Hyperledger and not Hyperledger Labs. But a question that I have is that
no, Bruno, that was not the point whatsoever in that discussion we just had. FPC is not an incubation project. FPC is a part of Fabric. Fabric is a full-fledged project in it. So
Exactly.
when the dependent project
I understood what I mean.
when the dependent project template says what other Hyperledger projects are you dependent on, should I say FPC, which is not a project, but it's part of Fabric, or should I just say Fabric?
But so yes, there is the crypto dependency, but is this a strong dependency between projects, or is just a similarity?
It doesn't. I think it's a well, first off, I think it's a dependency if the code is moving back and forth.
Yeah, it's a dependency. I mean, FPC includes it and uses PDO code essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, without PDO, we have to write the stuff by ourselves.
That's exactly it, right? So we have to capture in the HIP proposal the relationship between them, one way or the other. I've already described it in an earlier portion of it, but the crypto and just the general problem, I think, needs to be referenced. So
yeah. So in terms of phrasing, so I would say the Fabric project, in particular the Fabric private chain code, I don't know, let's call it feature, whatever, and it builds on top of PDO libraries essentially, or consumes PDO libraries. That's great. I mean, if you would just say Fabric, then maybe people will ask. Then they would ask, what do you mean? So what part of Fabric uses PDO? So I mean, say Fabric, and then specify more details FPC concretely and how the relationship is. And I think, I mean, so what I quickly read there that you were mentioning, I mean, I don't know, IBM research work, Duluth, and this collaboration happening together between Intel and IBM research on the FPC project. I think this is great.
Okay. Yeah, I'll get that. I will get that additional, the dependency pieces of it, and call out the crypto library on it. And if you could just, when I should have some text today or tomorrow for that, that I'll add in there. If you could just do a quick review of that when it's
absolutely.
I would appreciate it.
The other question, I mean, are there any other labs projects I'm not aware of that also uses TEs to some extent, which could also be listed on the incubation proposal?
I even looked recently. Is the only place you can get the labs projects in the Hyperledger repo?
On the
there's
website.
There's no place where there's a formal list of labs, right?
It is on the labs website. This is labs.hyperledger.org. maybe. Yeah, there is a list of labs.
Got it.
On the left side, under labs, even archive labs.
Oh, perfect. Because there are a number of things, even like Solang, for example, which because of the work that they're doing for WASM, there are a number of things that are related, but I don't know that anybody else is using now. So I'll go through that list. There were a couple of the consensus. Is it still in there?
Was this MinBFT?
Yeah, the MinBFT was the one. It's not in there anymore, is it?
No, it's under archived.
Okay. Because the MinBFT was the one that was using it as well. So,
Right.
but the Trusted Compute framework was the original. Is anybody actually doing that one anymore? Because that was the original one that led to that plus PDO led to Avalon, which has now been archived as well. Because this is like, I mean, the Trusted Compute framework is still like Tom Barnes and Eugene, none of whom actually work at Intel anymore.
Oh.
So Trusted Compute framework should also probably be archived. As by the way, a member of the Hyperledger TOC, you might want to make that recommendation. Not that I'm telling you what to do or anything, but
Well, I think we have every 3 months this labs review. But yeah, I would definitely look into that. There was what I was going to say. Well, I think what would be particularly sexy, I mean, for such a proposal, I mean, if, I mean, somehow synergies between existing Hyperledger project could be, I don't know, I mean, described, or maybe also, I mean, just, I mean, expressed in a way, hey, those synergies could happen in the future. Maybe which other project could benefit from something like PDO? I don't know. Is it
well, definitely the
we-
identity, any of the stuff that's related to identity. Well, you know, like I said, Solang for sure. We've had that conversation a couple of times. I think they have some expectations from the WASM interpreter that I'm not sure we can meet in the short term. So there's work that would have to be done. So that one for sure. And there's clearly a relationship with the identity and the work that we're doing here as well. That has some pieces of it, but what is all right? But I think your point is kind of well taken, which is spend a little bit of time looking at the other projects that are out there and call out potential future relationships.
I mean, so what I saw, I mean, in the past, that, I mean, what I was also mentioning, that, I mean, you should ideally have a bunch of collaborators from different organizations in order to get such a project into incubation. But I mean, it seems that this is not a hard requirement anymore.
Yeah, that's what I got from Tracy when I talked to her as well. So
Yeah, and I mean also, I mean, we're kind of, I mean, we also would like to, I mean, get newcomers into Hyperledger or decentralized Hyperledger. No, it's called Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust in
Yeah.
the future, right? So therefore, I mean, you cannot let projects only in only if they're already well established and well connected between everything. So therefore, I think it's fine if there are not so many, let's say, synergies existing right now. However, I still believe one can argue, hey, that and this and that project can benefit from PDO, and something can throw something very interesting together. TEs are just a nice additional security mechanism which can help you on many fronts. So this is what I wanted to say. And maybe the other thing, I don't know how to address this. So maybe someone will ask when looking into this incubation proposal, well, we already had let's say a TE project and it's gone. So
right, with Avalon. Yeah.
exactly. I mean, how would someone address such a question? I mean, that's maybe it's a mean question, but I mean, so is there something? What we could argue? Okay, I mean, it was clear that Avalon will fail because of that and that and that. I don't know. I'm just thinking about that question asked, but I don't really have a good answer how I would approach this.
Okay. But I think you're right. That's something we need to think through. All right, I have to drop at this point. Prakash, thanks for organizing this.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Yes, I've taken notes. If you have anything, let me know.
Okay, Marcus, thanks. Wendy, Bruno, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Great,
Yeah,
thank
have a
you.
good one.
Bye.
Thank you.